Today's sponsor is Audible.com, who has more than 180,000 audiobooks and spoken word audio products. Get a free audiobook of your choice at www.audibletrial.com/late-night-parents. Why Audible? Audible content includes more than 180,000 audio programs from the leading audiobook publishers, broadcasters, entertainers, magazine and newspaper publishers, and business information providers. That's audibletrials.com/late-night-parents.
Shawn Armor.
Good afternoon. This is Late Night Parents. This is Ted Hicks, joining you with one of my oldest friends, Shawn Armor. You might have heard him chime in. This is a recorded interview that took place on September 21st, 2016 at 4:16 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Shawn, what's going on?
What's up, Mr. Hicks?
What's up, man? As I mentioned before, I was thinking about you this morning. So I was on the train, and, we sit on a group chat message amongst many, many friends, and the security office is calling me. I have no idea why you guys are calling me. Hold on one sec. Shawn, sorry about the hold, because believe it or not, and hopefully I'll be able to edit that out, but that was the security department who were calling, asking a question for room access and all this other stuff. So you would be happy to know, as I was mentioning before, I was thinking about you this morning. I was on the train, and I said, you know what? A lot of people may not realize this. I first visited the block in 1976. So I'm going to say I met you in 1976, and I didn't move there until early 77. So
that's about right.
40 years. How many people can say that?
that is amazing, considering I'm only 23.
Right.
Actually.
40 years.
Wow.
And I would sit... That's crazy, isn't it? And we're not like... What? Go ahead.
Never a mean word, though. Never.
No.
Like, get into it, but it's like cats leave with a pound and like...
Always.
And this is what I tell my nephew. I just don't understand how you cannot trust your boys. And cats always get into it with this. I'm like, why are they around you? I just think they accept anybody. And we were lucky. We kind of got grouped together with the guys that we still know. Just on the block, like...
all living on the block.
A blessing kind of happened. Yeah,
it was. It totally was. It totally was. Yeah. And we were all living on the block. And that block, you just think of it, back then, I mean, it's a totally different era. Because we're talking about 40 years ago. Okay? Right. So I know the people that are listening are like, how old are these guys? Oh, my God.
Yeah.
But, back then, if someone on the block saw you doing something and they didn't have to be a parent, they were going to check you.
Yeah.
And there were no issues.
Yeah. It takes a village. It's the simple thing. Like, I tell cats this all the time. I had, 6 fathers and 6 mothers. Like, if I was caught slipping, your mom would look out the window and be like, I will tell Katie on you.
Right.
Shawn, you know better than that. And I'd be like, and I go, and I clear it up. And it would be that fast. And now it's like that same interaction, the kid would have something snotty to say to this, the elder in the community. And the elder, quite frankly, looks at these young people as, these unwanted things. I think it's out of fear that they're taught to fear their own, and they buy into it. But yeah, different era, man.
It's really a different era, and it's really, I can say clearly, Jay's moms checked us, Thomas' moms checked us, my mom's, your mom, Dirk's parents checked us. I mean, over down that, and on the other end, from Troy's to Jason's mother,
Jason's mom,
Todd's moms, I mean, and it was to the point
that
where
was just a dude's parents, there was a ton of women who were on the block too, and their parents would check us too.
Yes,
tell us how to
that's how it was.
You don't treat a girl like that. I'm sorry, kind of keep you on point.
Right.
Yes.
But that doesn't exist anymore. That stopped. I don't know when that actually stopped. I don't know when.
I think I hate to connect it to hip hop, but I think it stopped when hip hop began to get popular, when all these young dudes were just kind of like feeling their oats and had nothing but snarkiness for everybody. And it hadn't, it was given to everybody. It wasn't so much disrespect because you were this, that, or the other thing. It was just kind of like, I'm the man and I'm feeling my oats and my, no-lace shell-toe Adidas. Who are you telling me not to talk loud on the bus? Or who are you telling me not to hang out under the street light? And then before you know it, that thing, migrates to everybody. Now you're being mean to the little old lady on the block who was nice to you your whole life, And you're doing it in front of a theater. All your boys are like, that cat, he's, and before you know it, you're like, this is what I'm getting rewarded for.
Right.
Negative hatred of, the women in my community, the men in my community.
It's just so crazy.
Then we're here.
Right. You get to that point, and sometimes I sit back. I'm sitting back in the office, and I'm like, where did the years go? Or things become such a blur to me, where I'm like, stuff. I notice that nowadays more, where my days of the weeks are bleeding together. And my wife will say something like, "Oh, remember I said such and such," and I was like, "When did you say this?" I said, "I feel like you said it last night." So I said it 3 weeks ago to you, and I'm like, "Okay, I guess." So that's my own deficiencies that I'm going through, I guess.
I think that has to do with where we're perched at now in our age group. I find myself, and I live alone, I find myself kind of walking into rooms like I was just in here for something. And, you hear your parents do it and you laugh at it. And now
you become your parents.
Yeah, exactly, which is not a bad thing. We know each other parents.
Right, right.
Not, when I hear that, I'm like, that would be a really good thing.
I'm just not sure because, knowing that and how we grew up, and it's I think someone checked me in the chat room a few weeks ago, and they said, Ted, we grew up that way, but a lot of people didn't grow up that way, because I think I was talking about having parents, and we were talking about teenage pregnancies, and we were throwing out a lot of different, and it's great because having a virtual room, you can just throw stuff out there and you get a feel of, hey, what are you thinking about this?
Exactly. You get to see if you're an outlier in your conversation. Like if you said, man, blacks and whites shouldn't date, the whole chat room would be like, what the hell is wrong with you? And then you go, okay, I'm 50 years out of date. I need to get my act together.
Right.
And, so that's the great thing about, that room with us guys who've known each other for 30 years.
Yeah.
No one gets any play. We don't care what happened to you. You're getting it, and you expect to get it. And that's healthy.
It really is healthy.
Known your whole life. It's healthy.
It really is healthy. And on any given occasion, anyone is checking anyone, and that's it's perfect.
No one gets picked on.
No. Well,
exactly.
I mean,
no one gets picked.
Unless you're like Marcus Owens.
Unless you got a
like
Samsung phone.
He got a Samsung phone, a Galaxy, and that you won't give up.
Exactly.
Oh,
we love you on Thursday, man.
Dude, I wanted to get your take on a few things, because it's been a crazy 72-hour window. And I mean, I can't even imagine, if you think about it, from like last Saturday, 72 to 96 hours, from last Saturday, and from Chelsea, and with the manhunt happening.
Yeah, in Boston to shootings
to in New Jersey.
Yeah.
With pipe bombs, Minnesota with stabbings going on, to Tulsa, where I have no idea what that cop was thinking of.
That is a good question.
Black while walking? I don't know. But to last night, I didn't know what was going on until I looked at the chat, and you guys are like, "Yo, it's going down in Charlotte." And I'm like, I turned on the TV at like 1:30 in the morning. I'm like, what? Like, what's happening now? So, I just wanted your take on the state of affairs that are happening nowadays, because I would love to get you on Sunday, any given Sunday at 7 p.m. Would love you on Late Night Parents on WGBB 1240 a.m. But I feel that we're up against, it's the quickest 60 minutes in history.
Right.
So, and I sometimes feel it would do you wrong by bringing you on there, or bring you on for a segment where you can just talk about one thing, because we go so in depth with some of this stuff. But you just your overall thought process from Saturday night in Chelsea, like when you heard Chelsea, because I know you've relocated to Virginia, but you're in tune because, everyone has some form of cable and everyone's watching the same thing across America.
Exactly. Right.
There's only a handful of news channels,
right.
global news channels. So, like, when you heard Chelsea, like, did you immediately think, oh my goodness, terrorist attack, or were you just like, people goofing off, or lone wolf? Like, what were you thinking?
The first thing I thought, and mind you, we're both native New Yorkers. I've been in Virginia for about a year, 2 days ago. Right.
Okay.
So I don't know if I'm a brand new minted Southerner now after a year, or an old stale, whatever. But I got to tell you, let's start with Chelsea. When I heard Chelsea, the first thing I thought was lone wolf, because it's cheap and it's easy, and if you have a memory of these things, you'll remember that the IRA in Ireland was doing this same tit for tat kind of little man strikes back at the apparatus, and it was pipe bombs in bars and petty little things like that, but it was relentless. It was an infestation, you know what I mean? So, and by the way, they stopped because of 9/11. They were like, we're not going to be savages like these savages. We're giving up terrorism. So that was the one good thing that came out of 9/11.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah. I tell cats this all the time. They were like, we're not going to be associated with these people. And so the whole West, who was, mind you, cutting people's heads off with the guillotine up until 78, knocked it off. So I see the Chelsea thing. I didn't put it together with the Jersey, the seaside bombing.
Yeah,
because I was like, really? If I was the bad guy, I wouldn't lug all these bombs to Jersey and then lug some back to New York, or however he would. You want to just, I don't know. It didn't enter my head that that's the way it would play out. So when I found out that this guy was this motivated, is the word that law enforcement like to use, this motivated to plant, the one guy planting 10 bombs, that's a new thing. And that's when you have to seriously wonder what's going on with your apparatus, because it seems to be that these people, and I don't think we're doing a bad job reaching out to them. Mind you, we're 340 million people, so you're going to get, even if half of a quarter of 1%, it's still going to be a couple of thousand people, just because the sheer number of it. But I think when you get these guys, they're going to be given up fairly quickly. Like his father called him a terrorist a year ago. And the more you see these guys, the more it looks like there's a difference between the guys who want to be terrorists who are outside the country versus the guys who are here. The guys who are here seem more like they're just unhappy. This girl didn't like me. My woman's leaving me. I lost my job. I can't get a break in America, so then they do this. Versus I'll call it actual grievances, which they're not real, versus what Al-Qaeda and ISIS and the Taliban said what their grievances, which is religious.
So I got to stop you. I got to stop you for 1 second. So you would say they're unhappy versus reprogrammed.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly.
Okay.
So I'm pretty sure, like, if any one of these guys that we read with would have got a date or a phone number from a cute girl, none of this would have happened. It would have been like, I hate America, blah, 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 and that cute chick was like, blah, 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 and he was like, oh, I met her at this paint store. She called me back. She seems to really like me. Now all of a sudden, you're looking at a horizon with, the sun and clouds and blue sky, versus looking out into like the chasm of death and despair. So why linger? And my problems are all caused by fill in the blank, women, men, blacks, Asians, the American establishment, versus looking at, he lived here his whole life. He came here when he was like 3. You know what I mean? What is his beef?
Right.
So it's that. And then you get, this guy with the knife who's running around stabbing people. That strikes me as either the same thing or just a straight mental illness, because this is America, and there are way more guns than trees in America. So if you bring a knife to any of these things, especially in the Midwest, these places where there are open carry laws, that just sounds to me like you're mentally insane. That doesn't sound like you want to get away with this strike at the the apparatus. So I don't want to sound cavalier about it, but I don't fear these guys, because I don't think that they're the guys who are organized and dangerous, like the Al-Qaeda guys who attacked us on 9/11, who had these guys just like they listen to some of this internet stuff and they pick their grievance, whether it's 1, 2, or 3, or a combination of all the above, and then they slather on for good measure, bombings in Afghanistan and Iraq, and America hates us, and then they do these things, and it's it's a one-up because they sacrifice the rest of their days to us. So,
what do you think, Shawn? What do you think we could be doing better to, to prevent it from spreading online? What do you think we could do better? Like, what systems do you think we should put in place? Not looking for a specific technical question
or anything like that, right?
Right.
I feel you. While trying to maintain our own brand of democracy and not have these guys come up and make us shrink it for fear or any of these things that they're trying to get us to do. So, everybody will still travel and take planes and trains and boats and cars and all that. And tackle this internet thing. I think it's just the monitoring of it, and I hate to sound, like I work for the state, but quite frankly, if you do see something, say something. That is simply it. Because a lot of this is always somebody blurting out stuff. You're sitting at a bar with somebody, and he's not capitulate. You ever commiserate with your boys? They're like, oh,
yes.
My wife is getting on me, and he's like, oh, my girlfriend wants me to marry her, and you're like, oh, the kids are oh, the car, that's just kind of like venting. And then he goes, man, and these cops, I could just really kill all of them. Then you kind of go, okay, well, people just throw words around. I'll let that one go, but I'll save it. So maybe he doesn't say something immediate. He doesn't get off on a jag about it, which makes your haunches go up immediately. But maybe a couple of weeks later, he comes back to that. You know what I mean? And then it's like, okay, this is simmering in the back of his subconscious, and that's when you begin to go, you really begin to look at where his head is, and if he is just unhappy, and if you took him out a little more, and maybe if he got a date or took some night classes and actually chased the dream he gave up on, or got interested in something else other than the dank sadness of what appears to be the new America. I hate to tell you. I know people who can barely get by, and it doesn't make any sense. And those people have college education. So can you imagine the guy who works for his dad's chicken shop in Jersey?
I got to stop you for 1 second. I got to stop you for 1 second and say, you remember when we were growing up, and I hate for this to sound like memory lane. You remember when we were growing up, like one adult, the one parent was working, and the other one was at home making sure everything was straight?
Yeah, and that's another part of the problem. I mean, those days are gone because even if you could have raised, 3 kids on one salary and still took night courses. And, it's that kind of thing. I mean, my parents had 2 cars and, 5 kids, and it all kind of worked out. You know what I'm saying? So
right. Everything worked out.
And now that's impossible. I know people with both parents have jobs and, and they barely get by. And people are all on this weird perch of not wanting to upset their own cart for slipping a rung. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And it's valid, but there's not. You know what I look at it? Here's the cheaters, right? So we almost wiped out the cheaters.
Mm-hmm.
So now the cheaters are back, but this is what I tell people about the cheaters. All the diversity you had, the diversity of billions of combinations, have kind of been rebuilt with a handful of, like, let's say 50 or 100. So you no longer have, this giant diversity. You have a lot of animals, but they're all, let's use the names. Let's say in this wide world, all the names we have, all of a sudden now you only get to use 1,000 names. I mean,
right.
You wiped out all this diversity. You still have a lot of people all essentially in a bottleneck, and it's sort of. Do you understand that kind of that weird kind of analogy?
Oh no, I do. I just know that nowadays. I mean, I know way back when, my dad was working. He told my mother, "You don't have to work anymore." She stayed home.
Right.
And she focused on, what she needed to focus on at home.
Right. She focused on the heart. Right.
Right.
The children, the home.
Right.
Education.
And back then, they were able to go on vacation. They were able to do this. They were able to do that. Today,
we went to Disney World.
Right, but today families are rubbing 2 nickels together, both parents working, inflation out the wazoo. Cost of living adjustments just don't match up, and you're just everyone's living check to check. No one's happy. Yeah. And you see these massive amounts of layoffs every time you blink your eyes. You go to Twitter. First thing I do is I see what's trending, and I see Cisco, and I'm like, uh-oh, what happened? Either they got purchased or they're laying off. And I'm like, oh, another 6,000 jobs. All the companies that were, part of that core American pie that you would never think, like GE and this company and that company, they're all going through layoffs, restructuring,
but
mergers.
They're always going through layoffs and restructuring. And then, it seems to me to be incredible malpractice with these companies. I mean, we bailed out the auto industry. We bailed out the airline industry a couple of times. We bailed out the banks. We just keep bailing people out, and no one goes to jail for either being incompetent or criminal.
Nope.
And this is where we are now. The people don't trust the apparatus, and the apparatus is sending us Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton, 2 people who, no disrespect to either one of them. I don't want to be sued by them, but 2 people nobody really wants.
Right.
And the people are like, if we're the greatest nation in the world, why don't we get a do-over? Because the do-over isn't in the oligarch's best interest. You know what I mean?
Right.
So, I mean, you're going to be made to take it in the pants like we were made to take George Bush in the pants. But even as you know this, you shouldn't, and like I told my nephew, you shouldn't blow smoke up your own tuchus about how great the place is, because then no one ever fixes the problems. We should have fixed the race problem 300 years ago. We didn't. And we're still hemming and hawing about it. Because, fixing it was not good for the people who ran it. I tell people all the time, look, the slave economy wasn't just slaves. People made chains, and, even though they didn't, they were ancillary. So they did all this stuff. They made whips, right? So when you got rid of the car, you got rid of the car. When you got rid of the horse-drawn carriage for the car, you didn't just get rid of, horses and these guys. You got rid of, the blacksmiths who were, making horseshoes. You also, got rid of these guys for hay and feeding and manure and all this stuff. So the whole industries fall away. And all these ancillary industries, these industries that feed into the larger industry don't want things to change.
Right.
And this is where we are. So when you want change, you have to tackle the whole thing. So like if I'll use the American government as an example. Let's say you wanted to change the president because you didn't like the way the government was going. You would not just have to change him. You would have to change large parts of Congress, get these congressmen out there. You would have to change large parts of these senators. And then not just them, their underlings who are waiting to come up and be a senator for somebody, who's got the same philosophy. Then the people who feed in, these soup makers and, limo drivers and fancy slick restaurants and, the brothels and all this, you're going to have the ripple effect isn't just the stuff that you see. The iceberg is way deeper. And it all really starts with you and me and the individual dude or lady at the house. If they just said, I personally am not taking this crap, I'm not voting for X or Y, and I can't be pushed into it, or I am not going to miss voting for this person because I believe so fervently, then the place changes. But I think everybody's just kind of like, why bother? If I vote, it's just going to be whoever I don't want. Or, so people kind of get complacent and blah, and they don't vote as much. And when the people on top do this, they know intrinsically that you are not going to rise up in any real way to stop them. So you may, get 100, 200 people on the street and protest for a day, but then you're going back to your job and your life, and they're going to stay there in Congress or on Wall Street or wherever they are, paying whoever they're paying, and, doing this evil stuff like opening bank accounts for people. Did you hear about that?
Yes.
Wells Fargo?
Yes, Wells Fargo.
How is that not punishable by handcuffs? I mean, it's just, and people will see that at home and they'll just kind of go, oh, yeah, sorry about that. My nephew just walked in on me. But people will see that and just quite frankly lose lose any sense of outrage. It's getting to the point now. I think the next step, you'll know you lost the country when you hear a giant rock and roll star walk out on stage at like the MTV Awards with his 8-year-old girlfriend, and people go,
right.
You know what I mean? That's when you
right.
go, wow, we are through this thing, But it seems every day it gets more and more just kind of, and I don't want to sound like I'm a, some church lady, but the stuff that passes for just decency in the public sphere. I mean, I don't care what you do at your house, Take yourself to the ceilings, and it's not my business. But once you're out in public, telling me who you want to vote for, who I should vote for, who you think I should vote for, and then like your whole private life is, sinning debauchery, cheating on your girl, cocaine, and wild trips. I don't want your advice in my political sphere. I want your advice in my party sphere. This is how you really have a party. This is where you really want to go. Or this is the flush cool things to be in. That all makes sense to me. But when I need good political guidance, I am now forced, because there's no one to look to, it's all MTV, I'm now forced to rely on what I know about history. And luckily, I steep myself in politics. Because I remember watching President Carter run against Ford in 75?
76, yeah.
Yeah, and I remember being really interested in it. And how old could I have been then? 6 or something? I remember being really interested. And, it's who do you look to now? I mean, but I had a lot of respect for Barack Obama, but I know there are constraints on him.
Oh, there's total constraints on him.
Full-throatedly about unfairness.
No.
Before somebody goes playing the race for it.
Well, when he, I would say in another 100 days. No, I would say when he's a private citizen, watch out.
Right.
When he's a private citizen, I think he's going to be able to speak on all the stuff that he really wanted to speak on. during these past 8 years, but couldn't because, you know, everyone's kind of neutered when they're in that specific role. Because, I mean, you're not yourself. I mean, and not to say that the president sold out or anything like that, but I'm saying for you to have that type of position,
exactly,
you owe so many favors to so many big businesses and you know, those type of folks.
Exactly. And you are not going to climb up there and cut everybody's throat. You're not just going to get up there and do whatever you want. It's not a kingdom. It's not a kingship or, you know, where you're the Pope and you can do whatever you want. Once you get up there, you still have to dance this crazy dance with not just with the people who bought you, but then you got to apparently please people that we, the public, have no idea exist.
Right.
So
you know. Hey, I want to stop for a second because we talked a little bit about Chelsea and New Jersey, and then we kind of dipped into politics.
I kind of wander.
No, it's fine. I want to touch upon another aspect of it that's, you know, deep into the elections also is whenever you talk about that four-letter word, race. We were upset with Colin Kaepernick a few weeks ago. People were ripping him apart. But in the last 48 hours, we've seen two gentlemen, you know, one on video that had his hands up that, you know, the Tulsa police said, you know, he failed to comply, or I'm not even sure what they're saying right now. I just know he's no longer here. The video was disturbing, and there was an event that happened in Charlotte where I don't know if he had a book in his hand or he had a gun or whatever the case is, but you get two powder kegs about to explode. I mean, Charlotte basically exploded last night. Tulsa seems like it's about to explode. Could you give me your take, Shawn, on that situation? Let's initially focus on Tulsa after you saw that video.
All right. Well, the Tulsa video with what looked to me like Terrence Crothers, right?
Yes.
Walking slowly toward his stalled car that stopped in the middle of the road, right? And then he shot. So it didn't look like he lunged at anybody, he jerked at anybody. You know, it didn't look like he was waving his hands dramatically, or you know, and none of the telltale signs that say from someone looking across out of earshot who can't, you know, nobody knows what is being spoken, but from looking across out of earshot, none of his body mechanics say problem guy. You know what I'm saying? So for them to then say what they said at the press conference before they had to release the video, to me, I'm really trying to watch my words here. I'm trying to maintain manhood and not, you know what I'm saying? It's what my mother said: if you can't say anything nice, don't say anything at all. I just think the amount of lying that police departments do throughout this country is so ridiculously blatant that first, I mean, why lie if you can do whatever you want, you know? It was always that way. And now it seems like the culture has been so poisoned so long, what you're trying to do is dress it up, you know, tell people, stand it as close to the military as you can and say how dignified and honorable and noble the profession is, even as people tell you that this has been this way for hundreds of years, you know? And since we've been making it an issue to have it changed since about 58, I want to say, since the first sitting at the Woolworth, I think it was like 50, might have been earlier than that. But it's, ever since then, when we were all about no violence now, but we want change, but no violence. 60 years later, you know, it just shows you when there weren't cameras and people were actively trying to be peaceful and I want to say honor bound, but just kind of follow the rule of the law and have in their heart the idea that we're part of the country. all those anonymous people, before there were these tiny little cameras and phones, let's say since 1985. So from 1952 to 1985, you're telling me all those people that the police shot were justified. You're telling me everybody who got handcuffs put on, who went to jail, needed to be there. I mean, you're telling me all these things, and I want to believe you, but all I know is behavior doesn't change because there's a camera on it, and that's been proven. So if that's the case, and we have behavior that is horrible behavior that you and your black four-star generals are saying is horrible, four-star police chiefs rather, are saying is horrible, and we all agree, but then your actions are to let it ride. No one goes to jail. No one gets fired.
Right.
It's just you say publicly what you're supposed to say. It's sort of like somebody showed up. Here's another picture for you. Someone showed up at a Klan rally and was like, "We're going to give you a makeover." All right. So everybody, no more robes. Everybody wears a suit, and I want you to say nice things about the women and the children. And they're like, yeah. And then as soon as they have, like, one beer, step outside and have one interaction with somebody that isn't, "Hi, officer, how are you?" You know, it's as soon as you have one instance where I think you're wrong, your whole demeanor becomes violent and aggressive, and I'm going to teach you a lesson because the law will believe me first.
Right.
Then I don't think anyone should be listening to anything any cop says. It doesn't. I mean, because there have been people killed for all sorts of reasons. From, he had no gun, hands up in the air in a public place, to him just verbally resisting you, like Garner in New York, just verbally resisting, going, "This is unfair. I'm sick of being harassed by you." And then they jump on that guy. They jump on the guy who calls for help, who's coming from a show. He's a musician at a church, by an off-duty cop. That guy killed. It doesn't. I can't figure out in my mind what I'd be able to do as a law-abiding citizen who doesn't have a criminal record, who, truth to tell, has some law enforcement experience. I don't know what I would do that would not get me killed. I was telling somebody a couple of days ago with this terrorist stuff. If I as a cop ran up as a black guy, or you as a cop ran up as a black guy, or that woman, or, ran up as a black guy to stop these terrorists, the first thing in my mind is the cops who show up are likely going to be white and they're going to kill me. And then they'll suss it out later and go, "Oh, well, let's give him the Congressional Medal because he died, protecting the very idea of America," which is right, but he really died because a racist showed up and assumed the black guy bearing down on somebody was the bad guy. In an environment where that, there are more than one black cop in your whole city. No one ever seems to ask the right question, whether before they show up when we're on the scene or after they show up when we're on the scene. Meanwhile, you can shoot a terrorist in the leg and take him. What is that?
That's crazy. I got to jump in here. And say the fact of the matter that the terrorist was shot somewhere where he's going to be able to live and go to court, and we're going to spend millions of dollars of tax dollars ensuring that
that he sits in a closet for the rest of his days.
For the rest of his life.
Do we even need to spend that money? He's on tape shooting at the cops. Even if you don't get him at a terrorist site, those charges, if he gets convicted on, will pull him away for 40 years. That guy got medical attention.
Versus 2 years ago with Eric Garner, 2 years ago with that cop that put the chokehold on him, and when it came out last week that cop, the next year he made $100,000, and this year he's made $120,000. Factoring in overtime and all this other stuff. And you're sitting here, you're like, what? And the fact that any disciplinary action has been, there's like a closed door to it. The records are sealed. So you're sitting here saying...
Remember Bull Connor? Remember Bull Connor?
I want to.
Bull Connor was so during the 50s in Dr. King's, he was essentially Dr. King's nemesis. I don't want to say Alabama and Georgia, but essentially Bull Connor was a police chief, and he was just kind of like, I'm going to use these laws to make you miserable, and blatantly so. And as you watch that, you see him go, doesn't the federal government, I mean, why aren't they putting us, and they watch, and they, you know, I don't really know why, you know, that the law enforcement are perpetually given a pass. I mean, none of it makes any sense to me. None of it makes any sense to me.
It doesn't.
It's very Bull Connor. It's very, we have the law, we own the politicians and the ombudsman and the assemblymen in whatever state capital you have, and we're going to write these laws that favor, you know, police officers. And when that bleeds into when you have to interrogate a police officer, and I use the word interrogate because it should be used, a police officer, it's always his buddy or his friends who he closed cases with. So it's just not going to be taken seriously. And you get more and more people not feeling it, not really feeling it.
I want to read something to you.
It's going to be interesting what this place looks like in 15 years.
I want to read something to you. It was an excerpt that I sent out last night from the Tulsa Police Department spokesperson, Jeanette McKenzie. And it's an excerpt. So initial police briefings indicated Terrence Crutcher, who's no longer with us, was not obeying officer commands. Yeah. But McKenzie said Monday she didn't know what Crutcher was doing that prompted the police to shoot. 2 911 calls described an SUV that had been abandoned in the middle of in the middle of the road. One unidentified caller said the driver was acting strangely, adding, "I think he's smoking something." After the shooting, Crutcher could be seen lying on the side of the road, blood pooling around his body for nearly 2 minutes before anyone checked on him. When asked why the police did not provide immediate assistance, McKenzie said, "I don't know that we have protocol on how to render aid to people."
Isn't that something? I don't know if our police department does first aid. Someone should have just walked up to that dais and took her badge and gun and fired her on the spot. It's ridiculous that she would say that. You know, that's sort of like saying if some famous dude got grabbed for something every average guy would go to jail for, you think that you don't know if there's a law against that.
Right.
You know, I don't know, man.
That's a problem on so many different levels. I don't know enough about Charlotte. I don't know enough because there's conflicting stories. There was a book. There was a gun. I just know, once again, it's another big, black, scary man, because that's what we're viewed as. Yeah. I know today I was watching online, there was mention from the police officer's attorney, and the press pressed him and said, you know, what was it? Was she scared? And he agreed she was scared. And they said, why was she scared? Because he was a big black man. And the lawyer had to do a double take.
Yeah.
Said no, he was a large man.
Yeah.
And then, of course, said the worst thing you could possibly say. Oh, no, she gets along with black people. She just was at a function where there was nothing but black people at a high school basketball game. I'm like, why the hell would you say that?
See. I'm telling you, man, this it looks like this woman is going to jail. It looks like, well, she may not, because gosh only knows who they put on these juries that give these people passes.
Right.
But some of this stuff is so blatant that you wonder, I just contradict myself. I don't wonder why they get away with it. But, I mean, it's just so blatant that no one should get away with it. I mean, the guy who shot a guy and dropped a gun at his side is going to, like, he's in jail now. He's still sitting in jail. He did this like in May, right?
Yes.
And then you get a guy who did it yesterday.
Right.
You're sitting here going, you think that you just saw someone else across, you know, the country get arrested for that. If you're in that line of work, don't you think you'd be like, whew, I'm going to clean up my act. You know, if I'm beating up people, I'm going to stop beating people up. I'm going to work on this pension seriously now. No,
Did you see the part? Did you see the part of the camera when all the cops were backing up? I guess they didn't want their faces on camera.
Yeah.
Yeah, I said, oh my goodness. In Tulsa.
Yeah,
after the shooting, they started backing up and backed up off the camera. I said, oh my goodness. I said, what are we watching here? Now, people will say there's a rush to judgment.
There should be a rush to judgment.
You know
why there should be a rush to judgment?
Tell me why.
Because there's history here. There's history here. If there's a guy in your neighborhood that you all think is weird around kids, and then
chances are
he's hanging around schoolyards again, you can rush to judgment. You don't have to wait. This idea all of a sudden, look, don't rush to judgment. It's something that only favors their side of the argument. Just like don't be violent, and I want to tell people I'm not telling anybody to be violent. I'm just saying the argument of don't be violent from the people who are being violent is a stupid argument. It's the Pope telling you, not to have sex. I hate to say it, but he doesn't do this, and you do this. Why are you listening to him about it? I feel he may have some input, and he may be judging you. He's your leader, but I totally understand why they had to change that 40 years ago, because it wasn't working for the people who were following it. And good on the church, they have to acknowledge that. So here, you have to acknowledge that this is not working, and you can't just keep putting black guys with stars on their collars telling you how everything was above board and we are for the community as another guy lies there and bleeds out. And you saw, let me just use your airwaves to say to all the police departments, listen, not just in America, but wherever you may be, that if you shoot somebody, once he's unconscious, you can take the handcuffs off and render first aid. You know what I'm saying? You don't have to sit back 30 minutes and watch the guy bleed out. Normally after being shot, guys are pretty out of the picture in like 2 to 3 minutes because people are bleeding. And the whole point is if you don't want them not to die, you put the handcuffs on them and then you stop the bleeding. They don't even do that. And we're watching you not even do that. And then you're telling us to have some respect for you and the hard work you do because you have respect for us in our community. And we're going, I don't see any of this. I hear your pretty words, and I love the song you're singing. I just can't dance to it, And this is where we are. They need us to be for them because, like I tell people all the time, I don't care where you live, the cops are always, always, always outnumbered by the population.
Yes.
You do not want to flip this thing so that the one bad dude can convince it to be two bad dudes, or be four bad dudes, and before you know it, this is Solder City, and cops ain't coming through.
So true. So true.
It's just ridiculous. We as Americans are so much better than this, and people want to come here, and they should at least know what it is to be an American. Just come here to get on base, because I've been called nigger by people who could barely speak the language, and I was like, why is he in this country? But again, him doing that doesn't affect the people at the top, so they don't care. Now, however, if I was new to this country and I called Barack Obama a socialist and a Kenyan, guess what will happen to me? Like the woman with the German accent who was on Fox News all the time insulting the president, where is she now?
Oh, Gretchen.
No, not Gretchen Carlson. This was a foreign woman.
Oh, okay,
She had a thick accent, and she was insulting Obama like it was her job, and she's not in this country anymore. She is not, and rightfully so. Because even if Fox News liked her, I'm sure there were plenty of people who was like, I don't like Obama, but I got enough dignity and respect for my country that you should not be here. And she is not here anymore, and rightfully so. We all need to have a little respect for the process and a little respect for each other and to get to tomorrow. But if you have no respect for the process, law and order, you are not judge, jury, and executioner, and you have no respect for me, my woman who walks these streets, my children, then I don't see how peace is sustainable. I think they can stop this. I really do think they can. I think they've ignored it long enough, and now they're at a point in a world where everyone is going at it with each other and with their government, America's a place that can fix it fairly quickly. This place is not going to be Afghanistan or anything. But these bad cops, I mean, we're pro law enforcement. We're not for bad police work. We suffer from bad police work, and we don't want it. And this is what this government needs to do about it. They need to take a proactive stance. They need to start marching these people out from the scene, not like after they got to put on a suit and talk to their lawyer. I'm talking about, this is what we know about a good shooting. Does it meet the criteria of a good shooting? No. Put him in handcuffs. He can talk to his lawyer in the morning. And that's what everyone goes through, and that would instill, I guess, some sense of, okay, they're at least taking this seriously. They're not instantly protecting their buddy. But it's not sustainable. I mean, like I said, it can be fixed. Nobody cares to fix it, but it can be fixed. At least at this stage, I think it can be fixed.
Hey, I want to share this before we wrap up. So tonight on Fox News, Donald Trump is going to have, I guess, a town hall. He's proposing reinstating stop and frisk at an event aimed at black voters. So the Republican presidential nominee, Donald Trump, wants to promote the use of excessive stop and frisk policing policies, methods such as those previously used by the NYPD that have been widely proved to be discriminatory against blacks and Latinos and ruled unconstitutional by the federal judge. It's going to be on Fox News tonight on Shawn Hannity.
He's going to say this in front of a room full of black people.
I guess they said in an excerpt from a Fox News town hall billed as a meeting on African American concerns and scheduled to air tonight, Trump was asked how he would address black-on-black crime, and I won't even go through
the black-on-black crime,
the chicanery. He said, "Well, I would do stop and frisk." That's his answer. I mean, this is just, but I think the American people, need to see this, because you got this guy at 50% or 40%, whatever that number is, because no one's going to hit 50 because you got 4 or 5 candidates running on the Libertarian and Independent and the Green Party.
I think they're both hovering at 38%, and the other 12% is eaten up by the Green Party and the Libertarian Party.
The guy who
Johnson and Julie Stein.
The guy who had no idea of what Aleppo was.
Well, Aleppo, Gary Johnson.
I'm like, you're going to be the person handling our foreign affairs. Great.
When I heard that, I was like, I should get into this race. I know, that's crazy that he said that and he's running for president. But I don't. You're not. I get people blanking, especially blanking at 7 in the morning. I'll totally give you a pass, but I don't know. Aleppo. I don't know. That's hard to miss at 7 in the morning.
Yeah, it's I don't know. I just think the debate is coming up on Monday. It's going to be at High Street University, where it's my stomping grounds, where I won't be attending work that day. I got to tell you, because why, you ask me, is because they make it illegal to even get back into your neighborhood. I've had to
that makes sense.
I've had to deal with this in 2008 and 2012, and I said, you know what, I'm a little bit smarter. Third time around, I'm going to avoid this.
Dude, they call it a bubble. It's not a bubble. Bubbles pop. That thing that they had, that moving kind of force field, I've been in it once, and it's kind of impressive. I don't know how you lock off a whole neighborhood.
You lock off a neighborhood.
They lock
to
off
the point.
Shawn, you can't get through the subway.
I'm at the corner trying to get onto the main road to get onto my block, and I'm having to show my driver's license to say I live 2 blocks in.
Right.
I'm like, sir, I'm paying $15,000 in taxes. I should be able to get to my house.
Exactly. You should be carrying me, public service. I should be getting piggyback rides to the front door.
So, Man, I want to tell you, it's been fun just chopping it up with you. The first of many.
I'm sorry I'm a little long-winded, man.
No, it's good. It's good. Like I said, I want to get you.
All my words.
I want to get you on the Sunday night live show, but we got to figure out how to do it in a segment. Or maybe I can just block it off and say, you know what, you can have 30 minutes. Because what I usually do for the Sunday night show, we talk.
Well, I will freeze out if you need me to be between 12:23 and 12:28. I'll be there. You know what I mean? If it's 7:41 and 7:44, I'll be there. Whatever you need, Biz, because I'm there for you.
Right. Oh, no. What I'm saying is, get you for a clip of 15 minutes, or get you for a clip of 12 to 15 minutes, or even I just say, you know what, I'm going to kill 2 segments and just make you the last part of the show, the 7:30 to 7:57, and we can just tear it up and talk about whatever, because
that'd be fantastic.
It's the raw stuff that needs to be talked about that I don't hear it. I mean, I hear a lot of stuff on Tavis, who I really look up to, and he talks the stuff that you want to hear about, but it's far and few between.
Yeah. I like Tavis too, but yeah, I guess what you said is it. It's too few and far between. He mixes it up so much that sometimes you want more of one thing, and he's still giving you a lot of jazz fusion stuff.
Right.
Which I love. But I mean, I'm not a jazz fusion guy, but he opened your eyes to stuff that you normally wouldn't see. But I could talk why do we have this race problem still forever, and I know some people don't dig that.
No, I think it's great because I want to get you back when, and depending, I think I'm thinking about maybe 7:45 this Sunday, getting you on to get your take of look for the amount of players that are going to take a knee this Sunday after all of this chicanery this week.
Exactly.
And are you pissed off? Are you pissed off now? All the people that were on the bubble. Are you pissed off now?
Exactly. Remember the incident where, I don't know if this is true, but I heard the story where they pulled Chris Tucker out of his Mercedes-Benz.
Yes, he's going to church. He's driving to church.
Shirt, and I was sitting here going, you are not out of this pot. We are all in this together.
We're totally all in this together.
Yeah, any of us could be pulled over. It's random.
He was driving to church, and they yanked him. And he was like, "Oh, I'm going to church," and no, you're not.
Exactly. It don't make no sense.
So definitely, I think I'm gonna have a window open on 7:45 to 7:57 this Sunday, and I would just love your take on it. And it's like I said, it's different. It's different. You'll see. It's like this is more long form. That is just so to the point. Got to take a break. All right. It's just like the minute you start to jump into the conversation, you're just like, okay, tell me the best ways of getting in contact with you. And you're like, that's it?
Right, exactly. Just when you get a good, steam going on.
Yeah. But I want to thank you definitely for coming on. Best ways on social media, if anyone wants to get in contact with you. What are your thoughts on that, or are you prepared to say?
Well, I'm not even prepared to say. I have a very small social media footprint, and it's family and friends. I should probably get another one.
Okay. All right. We'll leave it there. All right. Absolutely. Talk to you soon, brother. Thanks so much.
Peace out, man.
All right.
Peace. The laws